Good morning, First-Plymouth. It is good to see you today. It is always good to gather together to praise God and hear the story of faith once again, to be community together, to see each other's faces. And of course, the cookies and coffee, they don't hurt, right? So it's always good when the Wildwoods are with us. So welcome home, Wildwoods. It's always good to have you with us. So here's the prayer. The prayer is that in some way, the Spirit of the living God will speak to you in ways that you need today. That the Spirit will bring healing and wholeness and new life. That the Spirit will bring joy and peace. Whatever that is that your soul needs, be open. The Spirit is here. Let us worship.
West Virginia rain, misty mountains calling out my name. West Virginia rain, falling down to take away my pain. I see it in your eyes, you're all alone and terrified. Thought that leaving home would guide a little more into your life. Brother in distress, I think it's time you take a rest. All the bitterness has settled in your mind. How the hell did you let yourself become so blind? West Virginia rain, misty mountains calling out my name. West Virginia rain, falling down to take away my pain. Seeping into your hair, drying your somber eyes. Does the rainfall take you back to simpler times? Calling your name, but it's not the same. Oh. West Virginia rain, misty mountains calling out my name. West Virginia rain, falling down to take away my pain. Falling down to take away my pain. Falling down to take away my pain.
So in this Eastertide, is that season between Easter, the Feast of Resurrection, or we know as Easter Day, and then the Ascension of Jesus. And during this season, the text that we read about are in two tracks. One of them is the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus in the Gospels. And each gospel has its own set of these encounters with Jesus. Very powerful, pretty amazing, very interesting. The other track is the track that we're going to hear from today, which is the book of Acts. And it's all about the early church and the dynamism and the spirit and the amazing things that happen in those early days of the community called the church, which 2,000 years later, that same spirit, that same wonder, that same awe, that same possibility, that same power is found in you. Listen. They, that's you all, that's us, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to the breaking of bread and the prayers. Awe came upon everyone because many wonders and signs were being done through the apostles. All who believed were together and had all things in common. They would sell their possessions and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need, day by day. As they spent much time together in the temple, they broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having the goodwill of all people. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved.
Acts chapter 2 is the vision of the pure spiritual church. This became the very template for what Christian community is supposed to look like. And did you notice, while they mentioned things like miracles once, and learning about the apostles' teaching once, and about awe once, and about going to the sharing and going to the temple once, but twice it mentions breaking bread. Did you notice that? I love bread. Do you know, it's dangerous for me to go to an Indian restaurant because I can eat like 5 baskets of naan before the entrees come. Don't get between me and a basket of naan. It could get ugly. So naan is this leavened flatbread. Do you know how it's made? I mean, traditionally, it's a tandoor oven buried in the ground that reaches like 900 degrees to create that manna from heaven. Naan was first mentioned by an Indo-Persian poet in the 1300s. And for those middle centuries then, only the nobility in India had access to naan. Then in 1799, it was an English preacher named William Tooke that brought naan to the Western world. That may be the best thing a minister has ever done. Naan. Do you know, if the table I'm sitting at starts teasing me for how much of it I've eaten, I just deny it. I say, I had little to none. It's a non-issue. I say with a certain nonchalance. I could do this all day, right? I get why Acts chapter 2 mentions bread twice. I get it. There's a restaurant in San Francisco that serves warm sourdough bread to die for. Sourdough bread is that perfect combination of tangy and chewy. Is this sermon making you hungry yet? and so sourdough is a naturally leavened bread. Do you know what's called a sourdough starter? It's a mixture of like water and flour and the good kind of bacteria that creates this natural yeast. And some people will keep a sourdough starter in their refrigerator for decades. If you keep feeding it and get the chemistry always going, you can use that sourdough starter for decades. Warm sourdough bread. I never did this, but I always thought that restaurant in San Francisco that I wanted to go in there sometime and just eat the sourdough bread. Then the server would come to take my order and say, "No, I'm good. I came here for the sourdough." That's all. Yeah, I get why Acts chapter 2 mentions it twice. Have you ever had the perfect bagel? Have you? Because, you know, it's a ringed piece of dough, but you know how it works. They boil it first, then they bake it. And if you do that right, it's like crispy on the outside. It's like got a crispy shell, but when you break through that shell with a bite, you get this dense dough. I stood on a corner in New York City chewing that one bite of the perfect bagel for like 20 minutes. Bagel. Actually, in the it's a Yiddish word, and in Yiddish it's spelled B-E-Y-G-L. But we anglicize it in the way we spell that word, but bagel. Oh. Yeah, I get why it's mentioned twice. Do you know about the English word companion? Companion takes two Latin prefixes, com, with, and pan, bread. To be a companion is to share bread. Companion. Yeah, I get why Acts 2 mentions bread twice, because the essential element to spiritual community is companionship. We're not meant to be on this spiritual journey that is life alone. We are meant to have companions to share bread. I get why they mention it twice. Do you know, the word we use most now sounds kind of euphemistic to me. We say community. It's a great word, but community sounds a little abstract to me. I like the word companionship. That's more tangible and direct. Community, it's awesome, but like First-Plymouth has 4,000 members, and depending on which one of 6 church services you come to, what is it to be in community like that? You might not know most of that community. That can be a little abstract, but companionship is a sense of direct connection. So the people that come to First-Plymouth, often they're coming already with a friend, or so they have a companion already, or sometimes family members, or sometimes, often at First-Plymouth, people come here and they see people from around town that they know, so there's immediate feeling of companionship. But I worry sometimes if anyone's here that hasn't yet connected, spiritual companionship is essential. And if they haven't connected, know that Pastor JC and myself and all the ministers, just call us. We can help connect you to some group or people. We're not meant to do this alone. The spiritual journey that is our life. Companionship is a key part of the pure spiritual church. Okay, there's a couple other elements in Acts 2 here that go into the recipe of what perfect church is. Now, wait a minute, incidentally, just incidentally, do you know what you get if you mix Indian bread with sourdough ingredients? Never mind, it's a non-starter. I could do this all day. I could keep doing this. Oh, no. So there's other elements to this recipe, and I want to draw your attention to it. So look in verse 43. One key ingredient to a pure spiritual church is in verse 43. It says, awe came upon everyone. So not a few people were filled with a sense of awe. Not even most of the people were filled with the sense of awe. Everyone experienced awe. Have you ever heard of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel? One of the great rabbis of the 20th century. And he believed that awe was the very essence or root of faith. He believed that awe is the first most important component of what we call faith. He said this, awe precedes faith. It's at the root of faith. We must grow in awe if you want to experience faith. Awe is the cardinal attitude of religion. He spoke again and again in his life about what he called radical amazement, that this is an essential part of the spiritual journey, to take wonder in life itself, to be amazed. That begins the whole process. He wrote this: humankind will not perish for want of information, but only for a want of appreciation. The beginning of our happiness lies in the understanding that life without wonder is not worth living. What we lack is not a will to believe, but a will to wonder. So are you experiencing awe in your life right now? It's an essential aspect of faith. Are you experiencing awe? Take a self-appraisal right now. A sense of radical amazement. Do you feel any of that? I worry these days that our modern personality, our modern sensibility is a little bit jaded and cynical these days. It's just kind of the style, right? And I worry that we would become untethered to awe. If you're not feeling amazement at God's creation or life, there is an antidote that God has provided. If you're feeling like you've lost connection to awe, get into nature somehow. Take a walk in the woods. It's a God-given antidote if we lose that sense of awe. You know, you could hop in a car and in 8 hours you'd be to the Rocky Mountains and you could take a hike and reconnect to some amazement. It's an antidote. Or even if now you can't walk or take hikes, you could have somebody drive you to the side of a lake and you could open the window and just sit there by a lake in the car and you'd experience it. Some wonder and awe. Man, I really appreciate Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, because he put amazement and awe right at the center of religion, but he was not some Pollyanna. He was not like some guy that just experienced life through rose-colored glasses. This man suffered immensely. Rabbi Heschel lived in Berlin during the rise of Hitlerism. Rabbi Heschel was arrested by the Gestapo. He was sent to Poland. His sister was killed by German bombing. His mom was murdered by the Nazis. His 2 other sisters died in the concentration camps. This man knew real suffering. Thankfully, somehow, through friends, he made it out of Poland into New York City, where he taught the rest of his life. But even through that suffering, he said, Rabbi Heschel said, I never prayed to God for success or even happiness or wealth or fame. I prayed to God for wonder, and God gave it to me. There's another ingredient here to the pure spiritual church. Awe in verse 43. But there's another ingredient. It's not actually named, but I think this passage is infused with it. This passage talking about how they're devoting themselves to the apostles' teachings and to community and fellowship and companionship and breaking bread and prayers, and then awe is coming upon everyone, and they're sharing, they're selling the possessions and making sure everyone has enough, and day by day they're spending time together in the temple and with glad and generous hearts and with the goodwill of everyone. This whole passage is filled with enthusiasm. Oh, this is a key ingredient to life itself. Enthusiasm. The early pure spiritual church was filled with it. Enthusiasm. And that's one of the great English words too. Entheos in the Greek. Entheos means God-filled. To be enthused or entheos means to be filled with divine energy. Enthusiasm. I mean, really, enthusiasm is like the secret sauce. Enthusiasm? Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Nothing great ever happens without enthusiasm." A Nobel Prize-winning physicist said that enthusiasm is way more important than smarts or skills. To be enthusiastic. One thinker said that enthusiasm is worth 25 IQ points. Enthusiasm, an eagerness and energy to engage something. Enthusiasm, it drives everything. Of course, this passage is saturated in it. It's dripping with it. Enthusiasm. So how are you doing in your life? Are you feeling some enthusiasm? It's essential. But again, I worry in our time, the modern personality, it's almost more hip to be a little indifferent to things. Kathleen Norris was a remarkable writer. And at one point in her career as a novelist, she was actually looking at some manuscripts from ancient monks in the 13th century. And as she was reading what the monks were writing about, they kept using a word that she didn't fully understand. It appeared in all their writings. It was acedia. And acedia, as she discovered, isn't talking about depression. You know, clinical depression is such a deep form of suffering. But what the monks were talking about, acedia, it's not that. Acedia is when you just become indifferent to things. Acedia is just sort of having the blahs. And the monks experienced this often in their spiritual focus, in their spiritual life. They just lost the energy and the enthusiasm, and they realized this is what they had to fight. They called it the demon of acedia, just this sense of, I don't really care that much anymore. Don't care that much. And they had to battle against that, somehow reclaim enthusiasm and theos. And Kathleen Norris, as she read the writings of those monks, she realized that she had struggled with that a lot in her life. Not clinical depression, but just literally a sense of not feeling connected or excited about things. Blah. Kathleen Norris taught that you should think about your own life carefully. Go through the elements of your life in your mind. Is there some aspect in your life that you're lacking enthusiasm? Then, if so, you need to make a clear, conscious decision. How important is that aspect of my life? Because if it's an important part of your life, you've got to find your way back to enthusiasm about it. Because nothing good can come without some enthusiasm. I saw a guy in a t-shirt, and that t-shirt said, "Sorry I'm late. I didn't really want to come." It's honest, but man, that's exactly lacking enthusiasm, isn't it? It's honest. It's kind of the modern personality. So my prayer for you today is that you will reclaim a sense of awe in your life. The Bible's teaching us it's absolutely the cardinal primary beginning of faith is awe. And awe refreshes faith. Awe, wonder, some radical amazement. I pray for you personally that you're experiencing some radical amazement. And I pray that if something matters to you, you can reignite enthusiasm. That's what drives it. Drives everything good. Enthusiasm. And I pray for our church that we will be a place that helps you experience again the wonder at life and reality and human beings. For Rabbi Heschel, he thought it was the encounter with another person. Right at that moment, you should be in awe that standing before you is a soul, standing before you is an infinity. He said, this is the moment you can reclaim it. Every person you stand in front of, to think, this is awesome. A soul stands before me. I pray as a church, we're creating moments of awe and then sparking enthusiasm. This is the pure spiritual church. That this is a place that we as companions will ignite an enthusiasm. Nothing great ever happens without enthusiasm. And so in the awe of Jesus Christ, with enthusiasm for everything He has taught us. Amen.
In this little light of mine, oh, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine. Come and share the light. Isn't it wonderful? We can come and share the light, our light, individual light, but also our light together. Come share it. The Spirit is here. What a joy it is to be together. Come.
We used to ramble every night, kicking up dirt by the train track side. Told you we lived to be just fine. Watching the beer tongues grow into bloom, dreaming what life would be like soon. Under the willows of an afternoon, I swear I saw a robin singing high above the heartache, a melody for hopeless wanderers. Painted skies, wide and eyes, and so full of youth. We always had each other to turn to. If this passage is our fate, I'll follow you.
Catching a whisper of the prairie breeze, spilling its secrets, and I'll never leave. My heart and my home are one and the same. Oh, and the storm clouds are rolling in, soaking into our hair and our skin. You put your head inside of mine, we ran to find a
Shelter from the storm of endless heartache, a gentle place for weary wanderers. Painted skies, wide and eyes, and so full of youth. We always had each other to turn to. you.
Yeah, we're still hanging on, we're hanging on, we're hanging on. Yeah, we're still hanging on, we're hanging on, we're hanging on. Yeah, we're still hanging on, we're hanging on, we're hanging on. Yeah, we're still hanging on, we're hanging on, we're hanging on.
On your way out, you have an opportunity for companionship, to break bread together. The promise is actually simple. When we gather around food, around drink, Jesus says that He'll be there, and we'll have all we need for the journey of life and faith. So, people of God, go into the world filled with joy and awe. Go into the world knowing that you're not alone. Go into the world and make that joy deep within your soul contagious. Go into the world. The divine life is with you. Go in peace. Amen.
Locks of hair
On the floor,
still waiting for it to grow.
back so I can go outside. Spoiled milk in the fridge.
How shameful and wasteful of my selfish mind. Why have I been so unkind?
Well,
I suppose I'm overthinking. I have been drinking on a Monday afternoon. Ooh, 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 all my thoughts belong to her. She rents a room up in my head, or sifting through the drawers. Ooh, 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 won't you tell me what you find? 'Cause all that you have left behind are footprints on the floor. Oh, yellow teeth
in the mist,
staring back at me. I cannot wait
until they all fall out.
one less little thing to worry about anyway. Why have I been so afraid? Perhaps I'll make some marmalade from the pulp of the fruits of my labor. Are you still angry about the broken coffee maker? Ooh, 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 all my thoughts belong to her. She rents a room up in my head, or sifting through the drawers. Ooh, 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 won't you tell me what you find? 'Cause all that you had left behind are footprints on the floor. Oh,
Locks of hair
hair on the floor, still waiting.
spoiled milk in the fridge, how shameful.
I suppose I'm overthinking. I have been drinking on a Monday afternoon. Ooh, all my thoughts thoughts belong to her. She rents the room up in my head, oh, sifting through the drawers. Ooh, 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 won't you tell me what you find? 'Cause all that you had left behind, oh, all that you had left behind, all that you had left behind, footprints on the floor.